Hello guys, I wanted to talk with you today about some of the budgets for ad spending when it comes to the major candidates. There's Donald Trump and Biden and Ron Desantis. I wanted to discuss those three and how ad spending is looking to be increasing dramatically from 2020 to 2024. Now, inflation doesn't make up for this because we're looking at an increase of about a third of what ad spending was for political campaigns in 2024 versus 2020. So it's gone up considerably by like a third, like 33%. So altogether, it's predicted that it'll be at least $200 million more that'll be spent in 2024 versus 2020. So expect a lot more ads for political campaigns, especially if you live in one of the swing states, which Ohio isn't as much of a swing state now as it used to be, but we still get hit pretty hard with political ads. It could still go either way. I mean, I don't think that we're at the point where, Ohio could easily still swing to the Democrats. It's certainly possible. We're moving more red. We're not considered the bellwether state like we used to be, but it's moving towards the red. We voted for Trump twice, but we also voted for Obama twice. So the Democrats should certainly not give up on Ohio, although we're moving away from the real pulse of the country and more towards the Republicans in general. So far, ad spending just since the beginning of their campaigns, ad spending ad spending for Donald Trump and Joe Biden has already gone up from $25 million at this point in the campaigns last year, or in 2019, to this point in 2023. They've gone from spending $25 million to $37 million for those two, and Trump and Biden. And also what's interesting is that Trump and his affiliated media have already spent 71% of total spending for advertising for political ads at this point have been for Trump. 71%. So Trump is outspending everybody when it comes to ads, and I don't know if that's going to continue, because last time around in 2020, Trump was outspent by Biden considerably. Even though Trump was the incumbent, Biden outraised him significantly. And it's important to understand that typically in our political system, in American presidential politics, or really all of politics, whoever raises the most money is probably going to win. It's almost certain. Trump is one of the few examples, I guess, since Jimmy Carter, who has won a presidential candidate, or who has actually won the presidency while being the candidate who raised less money. So almost always the candidate who raises the most money in a presidential campaign wins. The only exception is in 2016 with Trump, and in 1976 with Jimmy Carter, and it's usually quite rare. But I wanted to address a separate point. So this is fascinating. So when in regards to Trump and Desantis, Ron Desantis, he in the first quarter since he announced, his average donor, the average amount of money that each of his donors has given has been $200. And that's compared to the first quarter of Trump's Trump's campaign since he launched, I think late last year, where Trump was raising $34 per donor. So $200 per donor for DeSantis, $34 per donor for Trump. So what does that tell you? or what does that tell me? It tells me that Ron DeSantis is by far the favorite amongst the Republican establishment. The GOP major donors are siding with DeSantis. Now, DeSantis needs fundraising more than Trump does, given that Trump is the multimillionaire. It makes sense that Trump doesn't need donors quite as much, but they both need considerable donations to have a chance. And what this goes to show me is that Trump is getting the small dollar donations, and that seems to imply that he is getting the grassroots, the base. The average Republican voter seems to be more likely to donate to Trump than to DeSantis. And normally, like, the grassroots, whoever gets more donations from the base rather than the donors usually wins. It usually helps you to get the most amount of donors because if you get $34 donations, those donors can come back and give you donations again, but there's a limit to how many times a donor can give you $200, because no single donor is legally allowed to give more than $3,000 to a candidate during an election cycle. So if DeSantis is getting them in amounts of $200, he has, and I think so far DeSantis has had like 40,000 donors. And Trump has had like 500,000 donors. So more than 10 times the amount of donors for Trump, which means that his threshold is the 500,000 donors times 3,000 potentially that they can donate, versus DeSantis's 40,000 donors who have the same limit. So it helps to have more donors than less. Even if the few donors you have are donating more on average, they have the same limits as they all have the same limits. So DeSantis has far fewer donors, but each donor is giving an average of $200, and Trump has a lot more donors, but they're giving a much smaller amount. So just the basic optics is, of course, that DeSantis is being backed by the big money interests, and Trump is getting backed more by regular people. Now, of course, Trump is getting plenty of big money interests as well. He's getting donors with huge pockets, with deep pockets as well. But clearly, DeSantis would be dead in the water without these big money donors, versus Trump, who seems to be getting much more donations that seem to be coming from regular people. So that's interesting. And of course, these recent legal challenges that Trump has been facing, the one in Manhattan, in New York 2 months ago, and then of course the most recent one where he had to appear in court in Miami. And both of those were huge fundraising events for Trump. When he gets indicted, when he has to go to court and stuff, it is a huge windfall of cash donations to his campaign, and he goes up in the polls as well. It helps him in the polls. It helps him in his approval, and it as far as his base goes, the jury's still out on how that's going to help him or maybe hurt him. Very likely hurt him in the general. It's hard to say, because if he's running for president from a jail cell, that will be he can technically do that, legally speaking, but nobody really knows how that would go. But that does leave an interesting point, because there was a recent poll that I think it said 80% of GOP voters would not be swayed by a potential Trump conviction. So if Trump were convicted, I don't think it was specific to whether or not he was in jail, whether or not he was behind bars, but if Trump were convicted on one of these two crimes that alleged crimes that he's gone to court for and pled not guilty, if he was convicted, It doesn't seem to sway 80% of the GOP voters, the likely GOP voters. 80% of them seem to say that they're not concerned with the conviction. They think he should still run and certainly be able to run if he's convicted of these alleged crimes. So I think that's very fascinating because it just shows how much of a grip he has on his base, and that's also very clear when you consider how he's getting on average much smaller donations from a much larger base of donors. So Trump clearly comes out as more of the man of the people, at least as far as the Republicans are concerned. So these facts aren't all necessarily related to each other, but I didn't really know how to explain this other than in one video. So these are all just little interesting tidbits that I've found regarding, especially regarding donations and that kind of thing. So, and as this progresses and the ad dollars keep rolling in, it'll continue to be fascinating. I very much expect Biden to out fundraise Trump considerably, if and when it comes down to the general election and Trump is the Republican nominee and Biden is the Democratic nominee, which seems overwhelmingly likely. Anything can happen, but it's very likely that we're going to get a rematch of Trump and Biden. It's very likely also that Biden will once again out fundraise Trump massively. The Democrats have shown just how much more corrupt they are, because and not to say that the Republicans aren't corrupt, but it really comes down to the fact that by definition, the party which raises more money from big donors, the party that raises the most money from these big donors is clearly the most corrupt party. I'm not saying the Republicans wouldn't want the same money if it was coming to them, but the Democrats are getting the money. And what does that tell you? It tells you that the corporations, the big money donors, they want to go for Democrats more. Their money's going more towards the Democrats. So that should worry you if you plan to vote Democrat. Not that it makes a difference. I don't recommend voting for either major party. You're pretty much a sucker no matter which way you vote. Unless you vote third party, then I commend that. Anyway, we'll talk again soon. Thank you.